Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony. We're pleased to welcome back Fred Blatchford today, and I got to give Fred some credit. Fred did not know he was going to be the guest about 20, 25 minutes ago, but Danny Arp, our lead football analyst on the football panel, had an emergency situation come up in Forest Park, Georgia, that he had to attend to. He couldn't be available, so Fred was our first call, and thank
You went,
goodness he
did
came
you
through.
give
We
did
don't.
you give did you give the go to the left hander and I came out of the bullpen?
That's it. Exactly it. We don't call him the world's most interesting man for no reason at all. Today, he just appears. He's in Georgia. He's in Atlanta as well. And we have a couple of things to take care of. Jake, who does our producing and does a lot for me, he'll shut books that I've signed off and handle Venmos for me and all. But we're celebrating Jake's birthday, so I want to wish him a happy birthday. And you know Jake, Fred, and I want you
Yep.
to
Happy birthday,
have
Jake.
have a chance to wish him a happy birthday as well. And then we learned of the passing earlier today of Bob Euchre, Fred, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Euchre and if you have any kind of favorite memory or his significance to the game of baseball, because I don't know anybody who does not like Bob
Yeah.
Euchre.
I was running and I was listening to ESPN, and one of those breaking news things came in. You're expecting some sort of, so and so hired so and so, and the young announcer said that Bob Euchre had passed and he was 91 years old, and they started talking about a lot of the stuff that they remember. He was a unique guy. I mean, he made a lot of fun of himself about how bad a baseball player he was, and the thing that I remember, and most people remember when he was in the movies and stuff like that, but I think it was the Miller Lite
That's it.
commercials where he would try to get down there in the front row, kind of a thing.
Good seat.
Those are
Say
the
what?
things, yeah, that I remember. I mean, obviously, all the other things that he did from a television standpoint, stuff like that. But those commercials are the first memories I have of Bob Euchre laughing. And he was obviously he was a unique guy. He was super funny. He made baseball interesting, I think, for a lot of people that may have been fringe fans and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But yeah, you hate to see him pass at 91 years old. But if there was anybody that lived a full life, Bob Euchre probably would be one of those guys that considered living a full life at 91 years old.
I think he might have even been part of that series, that whole taste great, less filling exchange they would have, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
argument that they
yeah.
would have with the exchange with each other. But certainly in the baseball thing, I always want to have better seats, but end up at the top row, but be able to talk, lean to the next guy and go, "Hey, good seats, hey buddy," when they were
Yeah,
be up
yeah,
there in
yeah.
the nosebleeds and all.
Yeah.
But my father told me a story when I was very young. Dale Murphy apparently came into baseball as a catcher, and with the Braves came up as a catcher, and I think he was struggling with the knuckleball, with Necro's knuckleball, and others, and they said, you know what, this is kind of a concern. Not saying that he can't get it, but let's maybe look to move him into an outfield position, which was a glorious move because he was a Gold Glove kind of
Yeah.
outfielder and all. But that's not easy to catch that knuckleball. And one time they asked Bob Euchre, did you ever have trouble catching Necro's knuckleball? And he was like, heck no, not at all. Just wait, let it hit the backstop. And when it stopped rolling, I'd go up there and
I
pick
picked
it
it
up.
up. I was going to say if that's not the joke you told, I was going to tell that joke because being from Atlanta, growing up a Braves fan, I do remember that. No, I just wait till it starts rolling, I pick it up, and throw it back to him.
But he was and still is a treasure. And
Yeah.
the other part, the thing I want to talk to you, like, look, 99.9% of us who do talking with Tony on these shows, we're conservative in our politics. You can say I've got my Trump 2024 on right now. We're so excited that Monday is coming. Let Joe Biden take credit for this hostage thing in his mind. If he thinks he has, that's wonderful. He'll forget it 2 days from now. You don't have hostages for over 400 something days and you can't do a thing with them. And then 5 days before Trump comes in, they're all of a sudden going to be released because he's been threatening holy hell is going to be, released upon
It
them.
shows you how powerful. If they're not released by the time I get in office, all hell's going to break loose. That shows you how powerful that can be. The threat of that was pretty powerful.
Yeah. And so, but that just, Fred, to me, the air just seems more affordable these days. And there's some
Yeah,
hope right now. The country has just been so stagnant and even below stagnant. And we've just been hurting and this wokeness and afraid to say something and well, go to Walt Disney World. And, streamers of all ages don't want to say boys and girls
right.
to upset anybody. It just feels different right now. It's
It does.
hopeful.
It does. And I agree. It feels different. I saw somebody that was talking about how we need to take the the back and forth out of politics. We do need to do that. We've got to get back to where both parties are trying to find some level of common ground. At the end of the day, everybody's not going to be rowing in the same direction, but the anger and all that kind of stuff has got to get out. And I think if we could do that, and I think he's in a position to be able to potentially do that. Now, whether he will or not, I don't know. But we've got to move past all of this kind of stuff with the name calling and calling, candidates and other senators moron. And I'm not saying he did. Everybody's doing it. They've got to get past all that kind of stuff. They really do, for the better of the country. At some point in time, we have to get back to that part of it. And
I want that done, Fred. I
hopefully,
want this. I want the screaming down of each other when you're trying to say something different. Just in these confirmation
mm,
hearings, from what I've heard, I felt like the Democrats have embarrassed themselves. They've had
yeah,
nothing of substance. All they've tried to do is just, sort of what Biden was doing when Clarence Thomas was going through his confirmation hearings, there's no substance at all to the questions. It was finally like, I love the guy who, during the Hexeth, said, what is it, a 9 millimeter that is used
yeah,
these
I did
days?
see
Like
that.
that. We finally got some questions that were like,
I did
beneficial.
see that.
I really don't care what Pete Hexeth was doing 13 years ago. I mean, you go serve like he did, you might be entitled to a few nights of drinks and stuff to have
Yeah.
seen some of the stuff that he has seen. So to your point, when I was a kid, Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House,
Mm.
and he and Ronald Reagan had a pretty strong relationship, willing to say, okay, Reagan would say, I can give you this, but you're going to need to give me this. And the country benefited.
Sure.
Neither one of them got everything they wanted, but both got some of what they wanted,
Yes.
and the country benefited from it.
Yeah, I think we've got to moderate to a little bit closer to the middle, and I think the country would be better served if they do.
Amen. Amen. I'm completely with you. It is national championship college football time. I could not be more excited. The Buckeyes are playing in my own backyard. Now, little history with Fred and I. Fred lived in Cincinnati. We're longtime friends. He's no fan of Ohio State. I don't believe he was a fan of Ohio State when he moved to Ohio, but he's certainly not a fan of Ohio State after he lived in Ohio. And he's been pulling against the Buckeyes. I've not asked him yet who he's going to pull for against with Ohio State Notre Dame because those are two Midwest teams. I'm not here to blast the SEC. I love the Auburn
Yeah.
Tigers and I respect SEC football and all this, but I do believe that it's Ohio State's time. They've been knocking on the door. They got close last year. They lost to Michigan, didn't make the playoff. It was their only loss. Michigan went on and won it all. 2 years ago, they outplayed Georgia in the semifinal, which, in all honesty, was the national championship game
It
because
was. Yep.
Georgia just
Agreed.
annihilated TCU. But Ohio State missed a field goal. Lathan Ransom fell down on a 76-yard completion. I mean, I
Yeah.
can go on and on and on that night. I feel like they've been knocking on the door. And even though the money has been going towards Notre Dame because the line's been coming down, it was at 9.5 at one time, and now it sits at 8. I still think Ohio State is the team to beat there. My computer just went dead. Sorry, fellas, my computer went off for a second, but I'm back with you. I still believe, Fred, that Ohio State is the team to beat.
I do too. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the best team. They're playing the best football. They've got the most talent. You talk about NFL potential talent. Well, that team is laden with NFL players and all that kind of stuff. I think that they're going to win the game. I'm still going to pull for Notre Dame. There's two different answers there. I think Notre Dame's going to win. I am still going to pull for Notre Dame.
There are two things that really bother me about the game. That is Ohio State's weakness is their offensive line, which they've done a better job in the college football playoff. Although as the second half against Texas continued on, Texas was starting to take advantage of the line of scrimmage, and then they were getting better. field position. Notre Dame has a tremendous defensive front, and that
Mm,
does bother me. Michigan had a tremendous defensive front. I mean,
yeah,
Michigan beat
yeah,
Ohio State,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then Michigan's JV team then beat Alabama because a lot of the stars, like Grant, who's coming to mind, and Graham, who were returners from their national championship team on that defensive line, they didn't play against Alabama, and
True.
they still beat them. So that's Ohio State's weakness is that offensive line where they've lost two starters, including the Remington Award winner. That's a concern for me that Notre Dame is good up front. The other thing is Notre Dame has ran the ball on everybody they have played
Mm,
this season, including Northern Illinois and their loss. It may not even be the running back Love. It could be the quarterback, Riley Leonard. He is an exceptional running quarterback. Now, I don't think he's going to hurt Ohio State much in the passing game. He'll complete passes, but I don't think he's the threat passing that he is running.
no,
And when you've been able to run the football, Fred, against everybody, that to me, that's a concern
it
if I'm
is.
lining up.
No, no, there's no doubt about it. And they want to control the ball and control the clock and all that kind of stuff. I agree. I think since that the second half of the Michigan game, State's not the same team as they were in the first half. They're the best team in the country. They've been playing the best football of any team in the country. I think they win. But I will say, if they don't win, the locks on the building will be changed before that plane lands back in Columbus, and anybody associated with that team will no longer be employed by the University, Ohio State University.
Because not only losing the national championship game after losing 4 consecutive years to Michigan, but you will be losing to a former Ohio State football player who's now the
Mhm.
head coach at Notre
Yeah,
Dame. And
yeah.
everybody's going to be screaming for him to be
Oh,
the
yeah.
head coach at
Yep.
Ohio State.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the pressure.
Obviously, there's a lot at stake for both teams, obviously. Both of them have been close to the dance for the last decade or so. But I think if Ohio State were to lose, I think it would be more catastrophic than if Notre Dame loses.
But it is great to see if you're a college football fan, and I realize most of my viewers are SEC football fans, and that's fine. But if you're a fan of the game, it's great to see Notre Dame on this level, but
No doubt.
on the super stage. They are a brand. Ohio State's a brand too. Michigan's a brand, but Notre Dame is a brand. I've said for years
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
show, Catholics watch Notre Dame that don't even understand what 2nd and 6 means.
yeah. Now, and the SEC, this was just not a very good year for them. The teams were not very deep. Texas was probably the best one. I didn't even think Texas was all that good. So I'm not surprised at all that there's no representation from the SEC this year. We just didn't really have an all-star, program this year like we've had in the past. NIL, I think, has leveled the playing field for a lot of that sort of. I do think that the SEC's dominance, where and I'm talking about how many times they've won the national championship and how many different teams have won the national championship, in the last 15 years. I think that's over, and I think that you're going to see. The SEC always is going to have a team or two that's going to have a shot at it. But this thing that we went through for the last, 10 years up until, the last two, I don't think you're going to see that anymore from the SEC. I don't.
Your point in the BCS era, every team in the Super Six, the SEC, won the national championship at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee won, Florida won, LSU won, Alabama won, and Auburn won at least one BCS championship. And then Georgia has won 2 college football playoff championships. So that dominance, we'll never see that from any
Nope.
conference in this
Nope.
transfer portal, name, image, and likeness.
I don't think so. I think that those days are over.
Now,
NIL has become whether you agree with it or not, it's become the great equalizer.
Now, what I will say this, you probably right about it not being the SEC's year in football, and this will be more for a show for a later date, but it is the SEC's time in basketball because you may end up with 13 teams in March Madness.
Yeah, that's true too. Yes,
This is insane.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right. It may have flipped from football to it matters more in basketball now, apparently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do believe Ohio State wins the football game, and I think it'd be great. There's 7 guys on that defense that started 2 years ago against Georgia that have hung around. They could have gone some of them could have gone to the NFL. They took name, image, and likeness money instead. They took a little bit later. The mission, I've mentioned it before on this show, was to beat Michigan. That didn't happen. To win the Big Ten, it didn't happen. And I've been saying there's one caveat left out there, and that's to win the national championship. And if they don't do that, then it's been futile. And Will Howard has, the
Mm,
quarterback, has said, this is the season's a loss if we don't win. So I know
yeah.
there's pressure on the Buckeyes, but I can't wait. I think it's going to be great. I think that if they win, and I have nothing against Notre Dame. I liked them as a kid. Those green and gold jerseys were fabulous. You could hear Lindsey Nelson broadcasting games with Paul
Wow.
Horning,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
Joe Montanas and the Pete
Oh
Hoolahans,
yeah.
Bob Frables, getting, guys that I really respected, Vegas Ferguson. But if they win with Trump being inaugurated, 20th, it could be one of the best days of my life. I can just tell you that. It's just like
Yeah, yeah, the 20th is a big day. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on that day.
yeah, I just hope everybody remains safe. Well, speaking of football, Fred, let's pick some football, the NFL, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The NFL playoffs. I gave the panel three of the games, and there is a bonus game out there that is the Eagles playoff game. They're gonna play. They were waiting. The line came out a little bit later because their opponent played on Monday Night Football. So
Mm-hmm.
the panel has the other three games, and we'll begin with those other three games. And then as a bonus, I'll have you choose
Okay.
the Philadelphia playoff game. But it starts in Kansas City, the Texans and the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are favored by 8 points. And the Chiefs have been this solid team all year who've been winning. Even when they haven't been playing their best football, they find ways to win, and they are
Mm.
so good in close games. They probably weren't expecting to see the Texans this week, but here comes Stroud and the Texans.
Yeah, I'm gonna go against the favorable thinking.
Can you pause that right there? Like, or how does that work?
Is a factor. It's one of the toughest places to play um, from a fan's standpoint. But I don't know. I got a funny feeling that I think that I'm gonna go with the Texans.
You're going to go with the Texans with the points, but you think the Chiefs might win the game. Is that right? Or do you think the
No,
Texans win outright?
I think the Texans might win that game outright.
Okay. So sort of they
But
take the,
I clearly think they're going to cover take the they're going to
yeah.
cover with the points.
But they played so well last week
I
against the
know.
Chargers as by the way, as an underdog. The Chargers were
Yeah.
a road favorite, so maybe that gave them the confidence. Sometimes you see that in the playoffs. You pick off a win and you get another one. I know that the Patriots got killed in the Super Bowl that year against the Bears, like 46-10 or 44-10, something. But remember, they were a wild card team that
Yeah.
won three games on the road just to get to the Super Bowl. So yeah, you can get some momentum for sure. All right, so Washington and the Lions are the prime time game. Man, the Lions, they have got some weapons. Now that's a big number to me. That's numbers 8.5 that we have Detroit. But the NFC to me is brutal. You saw that firsthand
Mm,
when you saw the Buccaneers and Washington playing. You got to see Washington up front. Are you
yeah.
convinced that they either can win or stay within 8.5 of Detroit?
I don't. I think Washington's future is very bright. I think they're going to be a really good team in the future. They beat Tampa. I told some of my Tampa Bay season ticket holder buddies that Tampa's a 500 team in a really bad division, and they keep going to the playoffs, but they're 10-8, 9-8, 10-7, and they get in the first round. They get beat because they're just an okay team in a really, really bad division. So yes, they've won the division 4 years in a row. Yes, they've gone to the playoffs, but they get knocked out. So they've got some challenges. Washington looked good. The score wasn't as close as the game wasn't as close as the score indicated. Washington was in control of that game the whole time, other than the first drive or two where the Bucks and the Bucks really do look good on that first drive. But going to Detroit, and that place is going to be off the hook. You got a rookie quarterback, and Detroit's just full of all kinds of weapons. I don't think that they can cover that. I don't think Washington's got the firepower to stay with them. I think Detroit will cover that one.
Brett, in all my years of watching football, I don't remember a team like Detroit who has suffered as many injuries
Yeah.
as they have suffered and still had the season that they have had to be, to many people, the favorite to win the whole Super Bowl, the top seed in the NFC. That to me is also insane. We were talking about something insane earlier, but that to me, overcoming all those injuries,
No doubt.
tremendous.
Well, obviously, it's a tribute to their coordinator, their coaches, obviously the head coach, but I think the coordinators have done a phenomenal job to keep cutting and pacing, especially on the defense. Hell, the only person that hadn't played any defensive snaps on that team is me. I mean, that's how deep they've gone. I mean, they've got guys that weren't even on the practice squad and are on the practice squad playing in some of those things. So, they've gone pretty deep. So it's a tribute to their coaching staff, obviously. I just think right now it's Detroit's time. I don't think that the Redskins. I think the Redskins have got a super bright future. I just don't think it's this week.
So when you were there the other night, if the fumble doesn't occur there inside the 10 of the exchange, you still think something kind of happens and it goes just Washington's way, that was the feel?
Well, and I started to think, one, I get the confidence in Daniels. I get it. But they could have had at least 9 more points with chip shot field goals had the guy just gone for the field goals. Yeah. It wouldn't even have come down to that. And you started to, there was obviously we were all kind of sitting around talking like, is the guy hurt? And now, granted, maybe the reason why he didn't kick the field goals is because that guy doinked it, at the end of the game.
The post.
There was some thinking about, hey, he doesn't have any confidence in him. But if they just roll that guy out and he kicks 3 field goals, which you and I could have made those field goals. It wasn't like they were kicking from 55 yards. Right. That game's not even in question at the end of the game anyway. So, yeah, I like I said, the Bucs are a 500 team in a really bad division. Washington looked good, but I don't think they can keep with Detroit.
To the Bucs' credit this year, the Falcons were the pick in the South. That's supposed to be their time. And even though the Bucs may have one-loss record is not that impressive, it was still good enough to win the division.
And that's kind of you hate to say it, but that's kind of the mold they've gotten into is they don't seem to be getting any better. They do seem to be good enough, and they do seem to win enough games to get into the playoffs, but nobody thought that they were going to make a run. Because I don't know if it would have worked out the same way, but they would have either gone to Philadelphia or Detroit on the road. I don't think the Bucs beat either one of those teams on the road either. So they're in. We were talking about this yesterday. I was going back and forth with a season ticket buddy. They're either in tear it apart and start over, which God, that's a scary thought. Mm-hmm. Or can they do some things that maybe takes them from a little bit better than a 500 team to a team that could maybe compete for at least on the NFC side of the ball of the league. I don't know. They're in a tough spot because they're locked into a lot of players. They don't have a ton of cap space. And so I don't know what they're going to do, but tearing it apart's scary and starting all over. But I don't know if they've got the weapons to do it. They've got some challenges on the defense they got to fix. The offense, I think, is in pretty good shape. Bucky is good. Baker's obviously done well. Evans is going to come back. Godwin should be back next year. McMillan actually stepped out really, really well. I don't think there was a huge drop-off from Godwin to McMillan. I think he stepped into it. So offensively, I think they're pretty good. But the defense, they've got some challenge. Outside of David and Vita, I don't know what they're going to be able to do. Their secondary is pretty beat up. Even
I do like Jamal Dean.
Yeah, he's the only one, but he's been injured quite a bit too, and he was injured in that game, couldn't come back.
Yeah, I do miss Carlton Davis there, who's with Detroit.
And obviously that was the right decision from him from a career perspective. One, he got more money, and he's playing for a hell of a lot better team. So can't blame the guy there. No, not at all.
Excellent point. Have you picked the bonus game now? It's my 5-star. I'm going to go with the Eagles, favored by 6 at home against the Rams. The Rams, Stafford was phenomenal on Monday Night Football. He looked like he was 25 years old. It was a strange situation because of the fires, and we're all concerned about everybody out there. That game was relocated. They didn't mention this the other day, but I do remember in the late 80s, because they didn't want to play on Christmas Day, they had 2 wild card playoff games. One was on Christmas Eve and the other was on the 26th. Well, they played that game on the 26th at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was the Vikings and the Rams also. So I thought it might get a little bit of a mention the other night on the broadcast. Playoff game. This one was in prime time, was Monday Night Football, but I was shocked at the ease of which the Rams won, and the Rams defense was phenomenal too, and created all kind of pressure on Darnold and the Vikings. But I just believe Philadelphia's got too many weapons here, and I'm going to lay the 6 points with the Eagles. You said you didn't think the Bucs would be able to beat the Eagles or the Lions. So I know you must think that the Eagles win. I don't know if you're comfortable though with the 6 points though.
Yeah, I would probably take the Rams in 6. Stafford's just scary. I mean,
Hmm.
when they've got the best, probably the best coach in the NFL on top of it. If he gets on fire, they can win that game outright. I think the Eagle now, and again, I think it's a little bit Hurts didn't look all that great last weekend. If he has an average game and Stafford gets, I was going to say gets on fire, but that would be a really bad joke. If he really gets it going, they could cover. I think they'll cover. The Philadelphia Eagles should win the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams win if Stafford gets hot, and boy, we know that he can.
Okay. Okay, that's the point. And there could be one of those situations like we talked about the Texans getting hot at the right time. That
That's
they
right.
look great against the Chargers, and you like them against the Chiefs. So I appreciate that point of view. The game of the weekend is going to be the Ravens and the Bills. This is sort of the matchup of the two favorites for the MVP and Lamar
I think it
Jackson
might that might actually be the Super Bowl.
and Josh. Yeah, okay, if that's fair for Ohio State,
Yeah.
Georgia 2 years ago was a national
Mhm.
championship game. This can be that. Now Buffalo's favored by one at home, but and that's a great home crowd. That was the opening line, but they've actually the pros have actually moved this, Fred, to Baltimore is favored
Mhm.
by one, and that is very interesting to me because of being on the road, but. Marvelous. I mean, he is something running and passing the ball. The dual threat quarterback. That defense is still very good.
Yeah.
They Pittsburgh did not look like Pittsburgh for three
Mhm.
quarters
No.
against them. This is a tough game to call. I'm glad I'm sitting in this chair and you're sitting over there and have the
Yeah.
one
No kidding.
because I don't have a call on this one.
Buffalo should win the game. It's at home, but I'm going to take the Ravens here too. And it's a couple of things. One, it seems like Buffalo always seems to find a way to not win when they should win. They've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. They're playing at home. The weather's probably going to be horrible. That fan base is rabid as any fan base is in there. But it always seems like when it matters, and they've lost, what, 4 Super Bowls and doinked it off the goalpost a couple times and all that kind of stuff, they just always seem to find a way to screw it up. And I think with Harbaugh and that coaching staff and Lamar, I'd take Baltimore. I wouldn't lay a bunch of money on it because I do think it's the Super Bowl. But I think Baltimore wins that game.
Okay. It's been the Chiefs and the Bengals that have sort of been their thorn here recently, keeping
Mhm.
them from getting to
Yeah, yeah.
the Super Bowl. And this time, boy, you feel if there is a fan base that has suffered, that have had a
Oh,
great teams that have
mm,
suffered. Some
yep.
some just don't even get in this opportunity,
No.
in which there are plenty of teams that would like to have played 4 years in a row in the Super Bowl, even if they would have lost. That's an accomplishment in itself, winning the
Oh,
AFC
yeah, yeah.
four
No
four
doubt.
years in a row. It's like the Minnesota Vikings, what they did in the NFC when I was much younger. That was still an accomplishment. They may not have won the Super Bowl, but ask how many NFL players would they have liked to at least had the opportunity to play in a Super Bowl. And if you had a chance to play in four in a row, you've done something
Oh,
special.
no doubt. No
So,
doubt.
but with that success, with that being said, to come so close, I used the example to climb the mountain and not get the reward. It is just devastating.
It is. And you talk about, changing locks. The ERs in Buffalo better be on high alert if the Buffalo Bills lose, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going down around that stadium if they lose again.
I thought you meant like heart conditions for people, but I see what you're saying. Crime and
Heart conditions, heart attacks, violence, fist fights, anything you want to do, that the ERs are going to be overloaded that night if they lose.
I got you. And then on clarity from you on the Ohio State Notre Dame, you said you felt like Ohio State would win. You'll be pulling for Notre Dame. That spread's 8. Would you take that Notre? Would you feel comfortable taking Notre Dame at 8 points with their ability to shorten the
I probably
game?
would take the 8. I would probably
Uh-huh.
take the 8. I think with 8 points, they could probably stay within a touchdown of them. But I do think that Ohio State will win the game. They're so complex. They're so deep. They've got so many things going on. But like you said, if Notre Dame can figure out how to control the ball running, the
Mhm.
situation could be different. But I do think at the end of the day, Ohio State's just got so much talent on that team that they win the game.
Those two things that I fear, Michigan, where it was able to do them, they
That's
were
right.
able to create problems on the line of scrimmage with their awesome defensive line. And then when they ran the ball, they were getting 3 to 5 yards a carry,
No
limiting the
doubt.
possessions for Ohio State. Notre Dame can do that. Similar. We may have one of those games that's under 3 hours, national,
Yes, that's
championship
true
game.
too. Yeah,
They love
which
for
I'd be okay
ESPN.
with. I'd be okay with it being under 3 hours.
And I complain so much about ESPN a lot, but I want to brag on them for one thing. I think it's a no-brainer that they do it. I don't think this is kind of like trying to make the argument that, as I say in Fall and Recover, that the Titanic was a success because they made a movie out of it. But at least they take the bottom line off the screen during these major big games, so
Mm.
you actually
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah.
full screen. That
Right.
makes a big difference to me
Yeah,
when we don't have to look at all the scores scrolling and the news updates and all this. We can
totally agree.
just focus
Watch the
on the
game.
game.
Yeah,
So nice job, ESPN, for that.
yeah. I agree.
And I've thought Herb Street has had a pretty good college football play. I mean, he's been a busy guy because he was doing Amazon,
Yeah.
things as well. And he gets targeted a lot, and I've taken some shots at him a lot too. But I loved when he took on Stephen A. Smith and Sharp and Feinbaum on the first take when they were on it. They already after Ohio State lost to Michigan, they already had Ryan Day replaced and
Oh
stuff. And
yeah.
that broadcast against Tennessee says, well, I don't know what they're going to talk about on first take on Monday because he's still the coach. He still has his hat on. He seems like he's doing fine. Well, that's odd for your same network to take a shot at another thing. Sharp was not happy. He said something like that again. There's not enough bosses at ESPN to keep him from getting to Herb Street. So that to me sounded like a threat to me. When he
Yeah,
said
no,
that.
I mean, I don't have any skin in the game, and if anybody deserves to win the national championship after all the grief he's taken, it's Ryan Day.
Amen.
I
Yeah.
mean, it will be the ultimate if he wins.
All right, we've got about 4 minutes to go. First things first, let me run down everybody's picks. I'm going to start with myself. I'm after going 0-2 last week. I'm 40-39 for the year, so I'm a game over 500. I am absolutely struggling. I'm 9-9 with 5 stars. My 5 star is going to be my only pick of the week. That's the Eagles -6. Now remember, Fred's opposite of me, and I'm going to give you 3 hockey plays. 14-6 this year in hockey. I said hockey. I meant soccer. I'm sorry. Liverpool -0.5 goal. That's against Brentford this weekend. I've got the over 2.5 goals with Crystal Palace and West Ham. And then I'm a Bayern Munich fan. Bayern Munich's favored by 1.5 over VFL Wolfsburg. I'll go with Bayern Munich. So Bayern Munich, the over in the Crystal Palace West Ham game, and Liverpool to beat Brentford. Danny, our lead football analyst, is 92-98, 7-11 with his 5 stars. He's got the Texans +8, the Lions -8.5. His 5 star, the Ravens -1. He goes with Ohio State -8. The 4 people that took on the panel all went with Ohio State. John he's 98-92, 9-9 in his 5 stars. He's got the Chiefs -8, the Lions -8.5, the Bills +1. His 5 stars, Ohio State -8. Stormy is 95-95, 7-11 with the 5 stars. Texans +8, Lions -8.5. His 5 stars, the Buffalo Bills +1, and he's got Ohio State -8. And finally, Kevin. Kevin is a great guy, but Kevin has fallen apart. He is 86-104 on the season. 8-10 though with his 5 stars. That's better than most. Chiefs -8, Washington +8.5, the Ravens -1, and his 5 stars, Ohio State -8. So all 4 of them are on Ohio State. Fred's leaning Notre Dame, thinks Ohio State wins, but leans. But this is the important part of the program, folks. We've got 3 minutes. This is where I want you to listen. When we had Fred a few weeks ago, we asked Fred, what is your favorite play? His favorite play delivered against the spread. So as he thinks now, we're going to ask him what his very favorite play is. Is it the Texans +8? Is it in the Washington Lions game? Is it the Rams +6 against the Eagles? Is it in that Ravens Bills game? What is your favorite play? Because you came through last time with
Yeah.
what would have been your 5 star.
That's a great one.
I thought since you like Houston to win outright, it might be the Texans in that very first one, but I don't want to put words.
No. I'll be honest with you. It's not the points that's attractive to me. It's who I think might actually win the game outright.
Mm.
And I actually think Baltimore would be my outright favorite. I think Baltimore covers that. I think Baltimore wins the game outright.
You think that Baltimore's got a wonderful chance to win the Super Bowl because you sort of hinted at that when you said this.
I don't think there's any dominant team this year like there has been in the past, like the Chiefs have been dominant and stuff like that. I think the NFC is okay at best. I think the better teams are in the AFC, and I do think that it's either going to be Buffalo, Kansas City, or Detroit. I mean Buffalo, Kansas City, or Baltimore. I just think I got this funny feeling it's going to be Baltimore. I don't
Okay.
know why I just
And,
do. With Derrick
and how,
Henry and Lamar, I just
ooh,
think those two guys are pretty potent. And especially in Buffalo, the weather's bad. Buffalo can run the ball if they need to. I mean, Baltimore can run the ball if they need to. I think Lamar's playing. I think he's playing a little bit better now than Buffalo's QB. I think he started the season really hot, and I think he's a great quarterback. But I just think Lamar's just a little bit better right now.
and Baltimore and Baltimore does not have the injuries at the key positions that
True.
Buffalo does too. Diggs is injury is a big concern for Buffalo, and Derrick Henry. Nobody brings down Derrick Henry on first impact.
Hell no, no.
No. But Fred, I really appreciate you pinch hitting
Sure.
here for us, and I hope to see you soon at some Auburn basketball. I know you're very proud of your alma mater. I got about 20 seconds left. H&I Broome went down, but and they've got a tough one in Athens this weekend, but they
Yeah, yeah.
looked wonderful against Mississippi State.
Yep, they did. They look good. I mean, they've looked really good since Broome gone down, which is what you would have thought. They're going to be a little bit of a gap now that he's out. But boy, I'll tell you what, they've played well since he went down, which is what they needed. People stepped up.
Thanks, Fred. All the best to your dad. Happy birthday to Jake Barton. For Fred Blatchford and Jake Barton, I'm Tony Jones. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.